Hi, this is Neil O'Brien here, Profit Tips Expanded, and today I'm going to be talking about the three-step process to maximizing your sales and profit. And it's all about your selling price and getting your selling price correct. And it's a key area in business. And I know I probably say this a lot, but selling price, the reason I say it is because I've seen so many businesses get their selling prices wrong, and it's nearly always set too low. And what that means is that their sales are reduced, the profits are lower than they should be, and it often puts pressure on the cash flow on the bank account, and it's very avoidable. And the most common thing I see is that people are simply not including enough to cover all their costs, so it's set too low. And that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you the steps to setting it correctly. I've got a couple of examples of a product business and a service business. I've got a spreadsheet set up where you can put in your actual costs, and then you can put in your selling price method, and you can work out your selling price to make sure it's set at the correct level. You can work it out, compare it to your current selling price, and if you need to adjust it, you can do so. So selling price is key. Now there's three steps involved in the whole selling price area. Cost plus is like our American cousins would say. It's what you need to do to get the basics right and make sure that all your costs are included in your selling price. Step 2 is competitor analysis and USP, and step 3 is value plus and pricing. Now I'll be doing step 2 and 3 in other videos. Step 1, cost plus, is a video on topic in itself. Now, like all the other videos, if you look just above this one, there should be a link to two different files. One is a Word document which has your notes on all I'm talking about here, and the second one is a spreadsheet. Like I said, it has 4 tabs. It's got 2 for a service business, 2 for a product business, and I'll show you these shortly. So the idea is you can work out your own selling price. Now, okay, what I'm going to cover, like I just said, the workbook and the spreadsheet are above this video. The main things you need really to work out your selling prices, you need your annual costs. You need your selling price method. I'll have a couple of examples, and then I'll show you how you can take that information and put it into your own templates, your own selling price method. Okay? And you know, selling price, sometimes people don't appreciate the impact it can have in your business. Now here's a simple example of somebody who has sales of 50,000 euros. Now a 10% increase in selling price is 5,000 euros. Now that goes straight to profit. That 5,000 will go straight onto profit and should go straight into your bank account. That's the kind of impact selling price increase can have. So it's hugely important to get it right. Hugely. So step 1, cost plus. The idea here is you're going to ensure that all your costs are included in your selling prices. Now that might sound so basic, but I'm telling you, I see it over and over again that people don't do this properly. And funnily enough, quite often it's overheads, the likes of overheads of your rent and insurance and phones and so on. People don't include all these, and there's lots of reasons for it. One simple one I come across over and over again is that the selling price was set a number of years ago. So maybe it was set 4 years ago. And as you know, costs only go in one direction. So if it was set at 100 4 years ago, the costs now can be 120 or 130, 140, and nobody's gone back to increase the selling price method. And that's just one of the things I see. There's lots of things that cause differences between selling price and what comes out at the end in terms of your profits, but that's just one of them. And you know, in a recent video, last week's video, I spoke about the profit gap, the gap between the profit of business prices into its products and services and what comes out in their accounts at the end of the year. And selling price is a big part of this difference. So if you think back to when you started in business, how did you set your selling prices? And you know, like a lot of stuff in business, there isn't a huge amount of training or knowledge out there for business owners. A lot of it you're just in at the deep end. Now you may have done cost plus at the start, you may have worked out your costs. One of the most common ones I see is that people look around at their competitors and they'll set their price based on their competitors. I gave the example recently of Norma, who was a web designer, who was looking at her competitors who were charging 70 euros per hour, and Norma said, well, I'm not as good as them now and I'm only starting off, so I'll set mine at 40 euros per hour. So a lot of people will look at their competitors and set it at a lower level. Now And even if they set it at the full level, so even if Norm picked 70, there's no guarantee that her competitors have set their prices correctly anyway. So you're comparing yourself to somebody who may have set it incorrectly anyway. Now, premium pricing is a little used position where you say I'm king of the hill and I'm going to charge more than anybody else, which is something I love to do with my clients. And gut is another one that's really not recommended, because it's a pure feeling, and gut can be good for other decisions in life, but not for selling price, I can assure you. Okay, so what do you actually need to work out your selling prices? You're going to need your annual running costs, and you're going to need your selling price method, whatever that is. And I'll come to this spreadsheet now very shortly. So your annual running costs, they're the costs to run your business. Where are you going to get this information? If you have an accountant, as many businesses do, what you want to do is you go to your accountant, get hold of your last set of annual accounts, and it'll list out all your costs will be in there. If you've got an accounts package like Sage or Big Red Books or whatever, you can go there and probably get hold of your current running costs. Bank statements, again, it's a little bit more basic, but they can give you your information. If you have a cash business, you may have some system of recording where your cash is, so, and your costs. So you select the one there that's most applicable to your business, but it shouldn't be too difficult to get hold of your annual running costs. What does it cost to run your business? And again, this is information that you need to know. And when I start working with businesses and ask them these questions, quite often they don't know, and we have to go off to the accountant or whatever to get it. You need to know your running costs. So it's one thing you need. So now what we're going to switch over is to the workbook and the spreadsheet. So again, just above this video, there's two links. There's a link to a workbook, which is notes, and there's the spreadsheets as well. Now, in this workbook, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through an example of a service business, and then I'm going to go through an example of a product business, and then we look at putting your own figures in. So on the workbook on page 3, there's an example of Mary, who's a web designer. And what we're doing here, we're going to look at Mary's accounts and compare them to her pricing method. Now, Mary's accounts, it's in top half of page 3. I'll just give you the main figures. Her sales in the last year were 30,000. Her total costs were 37,200. So Mary made a loss of 7,200. Now, in her pricing method, she'd put in wages of 25,000 and overheads of 7. So she'd set a sales target of 32,000. Now, her total costs were 37,000. So straight away, there's a gap here between her costs and what she included in her pricing method. Now, down the bottom on page 3, I've just shown you how Mary worked out her hourly rate. Like any service provider, you're going to have to work out an hourly rate or a daily rate. So Mary just used a formula there where she's taking a sales target of 32,000, dividing it by 45 weeks, dividing it by 20 billable hours per week, getting a rate of 35 euros per hour. Now, that's too low because Mary is not covering her overheads. So in the bottom of page 4, there's a revised pricing method for Mary. I've increased Mary's rate from 35 to 41 euros per hour, and that's going to make sure that she covers her costs. Okay, again, if you're a service provider, have a look at your accounts, have a look at your charge out rates and see, look, are you charging enough? Are you including all your costs? Again, you may be over servicing with clients and so on. This is the profit gap video from last week ties in nicely with this one actually. So if you want some extra information on this, you can always go back and look at that. But this week's video is strictly setting your selling price to include all your costs. Okay, so that's a service business. Now, if you have a product business, I have an example here of John, who makes furniture, and on page 5, there's John's, in the top part, there's John's accounts for his most recent year. In the bottom part, there's how he sets his selling prices. And again, this is the type of problem we see here, is that there's a gap between how the difference between John's costs in his accounts and what is including in his selling price. He's not including enough. And if you look at just the slide I've down here, what you'll see is the fixed costs. John's fixed cost last year, so that's his cost excluding his supplier costs, his timber and so on, and his direct labour, were 76,000. His 80,000. We're dividing it by 80,000, which is, the supplier cost is 80,000. The overheads are 76, so they're very close together. So John's, for every euro John spends on timber, he's spending 95 cents on overheads, his rent and insurance and phones and so on. The problem here is that when John is pricing his products, he's only including 60% for overhead, and it's actually 95%, so he's not including enough. So what I've done on page 6 of your workbook is I've adjusted John's pricing method to make sure he's including enough for overhead. And what this does is, in the price, John's selling price, which was 2,400, it's increased it to 2,900. So there's an extra 400 gone on there, and that'll increase John's profits. So he wasn't including enough. Now, on page 7 of your workbook, and on the spreadsheet, I'm going to go over to the spreadsheet now. On the spreadsheet, there's 4 tabs. If you have a service business, what you want to look at are tabs A and tabs B. And if you have a product business, you look at tab C and tab D. So I'm going to go through these. So back to, if you have a service business, there's 2 steps here. In tab A, what I've got down here is annual costs. Like I said earlier on, where do you get them? You get them from your accountant, you get them from your software package, your bank statement, whatever. You need to list off all your running costs for a year. So maybe your own wages, if you have rent, insurance, phones and so on. What are your total running costs for a year? That's in tab A. Now you go to tab B, and here's your selling price method, and it lists off the steps you need to go through to populate, you put your figures into a selling price method. Now if I scroll down to the bottom here of the example of Mary, you saw this in your workbook. This is how Mary set her selling price. So you have an example here you can use as a guide. You can see Mary's wages, her overheads and so on. Works out an hourly rate underneath. I'm going to scroll back up because you want to do something similar here on top. So what you're going to do is take the information from tab A, so whatever your own wages were in the year, your overheads or all your other costs. This will total it for you automatically. And down here, you need to key in how many weeks you work in a year and the average number of billable hours. Now, using Mary as a guide, Mary has 45 weeks and 20 hours. Yours may be similar to those, they may be different. You need to work them out for your business. Now, if you have a product business, we're going to come over to tab C here. And again, same thing, you need to get all your running costs for the last year. Now, because you have a product business like John is buying furniture or timber and so on, you'll have material suppliers, direct labor and overheads. You need to get hold of these figures for a 12-month period, and you go over to tab D. Top part of this, again, you have all the steps here how you can go in and work out your selling prices. If I scroll down underneath, you'll see the example of John, the furniture maker, that was in your workbook. John's materials are 1,000, direct labor 500, overheads 950, total 2450, and then he adds on a profit 2940. You can do something similar here on top. You work out your materials, your labor, your overheads, total profit. Now, what you want to do with this information, if you go and work it out, is what I suggest you do is you go and work it out and compare it to your current selling prices. With this you're going to be working out a new selling price, a different selling price. Compare it to your current selling prices. There may well be a gap. What I see when I do this exercise over and over again is normally when I go through this exercise with clients is that the figure we come up with here is higher than the client is currently charging, the business is currently charging. You saw in the earlier example, Mary's charge out rate went from 35 up to 41. John's price of his job he was doing, the tables and chairs he was doing, went from 2,500 to 2,900 because they were not charging enough in their selling price. And this is what the whole purpose of this exercise is. So guys, I hope you found that useful. You have the samples there, you have the templates where you can go and work out your own selling prices, compare them to your current ones. If this is higher, then I suggest you start using these higher prices. Okay guys, thanks for listening.